Adam Silver just admitted what every fan already knew. The NBA has a tanking problem. But here's what he's not telling you. The league designed it this way. And now that fans are refusing to watch, Silver wants to fix the very system he helped build. I've got 3 reasons why his new solution won't work. And one reason it might destroy the NBA entirely. Let's get into it. So here's what went down. In 2019, the NBA flattened the draft lottery odds. The team with the worst record went from a 25% chance at the number 1 pick down to 14%. The 10th worst team went from 1.1% to 3%. The idea was simple. Stop teams from racing to the bottom. Make the worst record less valuable. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Because the 2019 reform didn't eliminate the incentive to tank. It just spread it around. Before 2019, only the truly hopeless teams tanked. Think the Sixers and trust the process. After the reform, mediocre teams started tanking too. Why fight for the 8th seed and a first-round exit when you could drop down, get a 3% chance at a franchise player, and rebuild? And that's exactly what happened this season. The Chicago Bulls were 23-23 at the All-Star break, a perfectly competitive team. Then they traded away rotation players at the deadline, went 8-28 the rest of the way, and landed the 4th overall pick. The system didn't discourage tanking, it rewarded it. Now I know what some of you are thinking. That's just one team. The system works for most. But here's what most people miss. Since the 2019 reform, 11 of 28 top 4 draft picks have gone to teams with 7th or worse lottery odds. That's 39%. The reform didn't stop bad teams from getting good picks. It just made more teams want to be bad. The NBA didn't accidentally create a tanking problem. They flattened the odds to stop one team from tanking, and in the process, they incentivized 10 teams to do it instead. That's not a bug. That's the design. And trust me, the product is suffering. This season, 34% of April games were decided by at least 20 points. That's not just bad. That's the highest blowout rate for any single month in NBA history. March was 28%, the second highest ever. February was 25%, 5th highest ever. The season got progressively worse as it went on, because more and more teams started shutting down their best players. A record 8 NBA teams finished with 55 or more losses this season. 9 teams had a point differential worse than -5 per 100 possessions. The only time that's ever happened. And the average margin of victory surpassed 13 points for the first time ever. More blowouts, more bad teams, more unwatchable basketball. And here's the part that should terrify every NBA fan. Since February, only 23% of games between 2 playoff teams were blowouts. But when a tanking team played a non-tanking team, that number jumped to 43%, almost double. The league isn't getting worse across the board. The bad teams are just getting worse on purpose, and they're dragging the entire product down with them. That's not competition. That's a hostage situation. And every fan who paid for a ticket to watch their team sit its starters in the 4th quarter knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you're seeing the tanking problem the same way I am, hit that subscribe button. The Sports Verdict daily breaks down the biggest stories in sports every single day, with the depth they deserve, not the hot takes they usually get. And here's where things get really interesting. Silver's big fix is something called the 3-2-1 lottery system. Teams picking 4th through 10th get 3 lottery balls each. The bottom 3 teams in the league, the worst of the worst, only get 2. Play-in losers get 1 or 2, depending on where they finished. The lottery expands from 14 teams to 16. Now, on paper, this sounds like it punishes tanking. The worst teams get fewer chances. But think about what this actually does. It doesn't eliminate the incentive to be bad. It just moves the target. Teams will now tank to finish 4th through 10th worst instead of dead last. Zach LaVine becomes the hottest player on the trade market because getting your team to around 35 wins, not good, not historically bad, just bad enough, becomes the new sweet spot. And the punishment part? Silver says the league will have new authority to strip draft picks and change the draft order for overt tanking. But the Jazz were already fined $500,000 this season for sitting healthy stars in the 4th quarter. $500,000. That's pocket change for an NBA franchise. The value of a top draft pick in player development, jersey sales, and franchise relevance is worth tens of millions. The math still tells teams to tank and pay the fine. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. At least he's trying something. Isn't that better than nothing? But here's the thing. A bad solution can be worse than no solution. And this one has a fatal flaw. Because there's one group nobody is talking about. The teams that are genuinely, honestly terrible. Not tanking, just bad. So here's the deeper truth. The Washington Wizards went 17-65 this season. Not because they were tanking, they were just historically bad. Again, they're one of the 10 worst teams in NBA history by point differential, and they've now appeared on that list in back-to-back seasons. Under the current system, they got the first overall pick. Under the 3-2-1 system, they'd have worse lottery odds than a team that finished 10th. The worst team in the league, a team that needs talent more than anyone, would be actively penalized for being bad. And that's the fundamental problem with every anti-tanking proposal. You cannot separate the tankers from the genuinely terrible without destroying the teams that need the most help. The Oklahoma City Thunder tanked their way to a championship contender, and they did it by being strategic about losing. But the Sacramento Kings have been bad for 2 decades despite trying to win. Under the 3-2-1 system, the Kings wouldn't get better picks for trying. They'd get worse picks for failing. The NBA's tanking problem isn't a rules problem. It's a structural problem. As long as the only way to get elite talent in the NBA is through the draft, teams will find ways to lose. Change the odds, flatten them, invert them. It doesn't matter. The incentive to be bad is baked into the sport, and no lottery reform fixes that. And here's the one reason Silver's plan might actually make things worse. The 3-2-1 system introduces something called draft relegation. The worst 3 teams get worse odds, but it's fake relegation. In European soccer, if you finish bottom 3, you literally drop out of the league. You lose your TV money. You lose your sponsors. Your best players leave. That's real accountability. The NBA's version? You just get slightly worse odds in a lottery. That's not relegation. That's a parking ticket. And every GM in the league has already done the math on whether it's worth paying. The real solutions? They're the ones the league won't touch. Let players choose their destination. Suddenly, bad teams have to build cultures that attract talent, not just accumulate losses. Use a lottery wheel. Every team knows their pick years in advance, making tanking mathematically pointless. Or tie revenue sharing to competitive performance. make losing literally unaffordable. But those ideas threaten the owner's control, and Silver works for the owners. So instead, we get a system that moves the tanking target from the bottom to the middle, penalizes genuinely bad teams, and adds enforcement powers that will be applied selectively and inconsistently. Because the NBA doesn't actually want to eliminate tanking. They want to eliminate the appearance of tanking. They want fans to stop talking about it. They want the product to look better on TV. But the incentive structure that creates tanking, that stays. So here's the Sports Verdict Daily Take. Adam Silver didn't just inherit a tanking problem, he helped create one. The 2019 lottery reform didn't stop tanking, it spread it to more teams. The 2026 3-2-1 proposal won't stop it either. It just moves the target and punishes the worst teams in the league for being bad, whether they're tanking or not. The NBA's tanking problem isn't going away, because as long as losing gives you a better chance at winning later, teams will lose on purpose, and no amount of lottery reform changes that fundamental math. What changes it is rewriting the entire incentive structure, and the league doesn't have the courage to do that. Drop your take in the comments. Does the 3-2-1 proposal fix tanking? Or is Silver just rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship? I want to hear it all. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, next verdict.